Hello, 10th grade, Mr. Lassiter here with you. And in this video, we're going to be looking at your 10th grade Flex Day, Lab and Law. In this video, we're going to be talking about the trial preparation. So your Flex Day is centered around this idea of conducting forensic labs in order to determine who poisoned Mr. Peterson. Of course, in the afternoon, once you've determined this, we're going to put people on trial, trying to find out specifically who is guilty and who is not guilty of this action. So in this pre-Flex Day lesson, we want to make sure that you have a basic understanding of the criminal trial proceedings for the trials you will conduct in the afternoon so that we can reduce confusion and allow you to have a great deal of fun. So let's go ahead and start off with what the day will look like. The structure of the day, of course, is very different on Flex Day, and this year it's even more different. So when you come to school, you're going to find your name on a list in the lobby of the school, and you will report directly to your assigned classroom. In the morning, we will conduct lab activities, and in the afternoon, we will conduct trials. After the trials are conducted, you will report to the BBT as a group, and juries will deliver their verdicts while you also see presentations. So one thing we want to talk about is who does what in these trials. So in general, we have several roles which you will be acting in. And of course, the first one is the judge. The judge oversees the trial, gives the instruction, and the judge is the person who will be ruling on matters of law in these trials. So, of course, a very important position for the case. Of course, bailiffs, they're going to be responsible for swearing in the jury, for swearing in witnesses. They are the muscle in the courtroom. I'm sure that you've seen Judge Judy's bailiff, making sure that nothing crazy happens. So that will be your job if you are assigned the bailiff position. The jury, of course, are those who are going to watch and take notes during the trial, and they will be responsible for reaching our verdict and deciding whether or not the defendant for your case is guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. The job of convincing them of this, of course, is the prosecutor. The prosecutor is responsible for proving the state's case against the defendant. Remember, defendants are innocent until proven guilty, so the prosecutors must do their job. The defense attorney, on the other hand, of course, will be responsible for showing that doubt exists, and therefore the defendant is not guilty. Of course, you will be putting defendants on trial. This is the person, of course, accused of the crime, and keep in mind, until they are proven guilty, they must be assumed to be innocent. And then the last role that we will have in this, of course, are our witnesses. They will tell the truth. They will answer the prosecutor or the defense attorney's questions, and they must answer them honestly and truthfully. So in general, we have to also think about what is the order of a trial, and we'll start with the opening of the trial. The judge, of course, will enter the courtroom. All will rise, of course, if the bailiff is doing his job, and the jury is first sworn in and then given instructions. So this is where the judge instructs them on what will happen, the matters of law, and what they are going to be asked to do. The prosecution will make their opening statement where they can lay out their basic case, and they will ask the jury, of course, to return an eventual verdict of guilty. The defense will then make their opening statement. And of course, this is basically how the trial goes. The prosecution presents their case and then the defense. So that's basically what we'll see back and forth. The cases themselves will be presented. The prosecution will call their witnesses and go through direct examination. The defense then has a chance to cross-examine those witnesses to try to cast doubt on their testimony. And then, of course, expert witnesses can be called as well based on the labs that you completed. The defense will then present their case. Again, they go second because if the prosecution does not present a case beyond reasonable doubt, the defense could rest. Though in your flex day, you will still present your witnesses. So the defense will, of course, call their witnesses, put them under direct examination. The prosecution will cross-examine them. The defense often relies on character witnesses, and in some cases, they will have the defendant testify, although they are not required to testify. They can, of course, claim that they do not want to incriminate themselves. The trial closes, of course, with judges' instructions. The prosecution will make their closing statement, followed by the defense, of course, wanting to cast reasonable doubt. There are final instructions given to the jury from the judge about making their final decision. And then the jury goes into deliberations. While that is occurring tomorrow, everyone else will report to the BBT for presentations before the juries come back and the foreman reveal their final verdicts in the case. If the prosecutors did their job, these people will be guilty. If the defendants did their job, we will see returns of not guilty. So what are the rules that you're asked, of course, to abide by during the case? You'll have preparation time if you were assigned to any of these roles. But we are going to abide by certain rules for mock trials. The first is that the stipulated facts may not be disputed at trial. So we will give you specific facts that, of course, certainly ones that you have determined in some matters of the case that are predetermined. And so everybody must abide by those, but the judge and jury cannot consider them unless the proper witness has given the evidence. So that's very important, that if you do not do your job as a prosecutor or defense attorney of actually presenting these facts, then the jury cannot consider them. Each witness who's called to the stand must be bound by the facts given in their witness statements. Of course, they are relying on the correct questions being asked of them. And of course, we all agree that the witness statements are signed and sworn and truthful. Of course, all witnesses tomorrow must be called to the stand. We want to get as many people involved in this process as possible. So, of course, you'll call them all to the stand. And lastly, we ask that you display courtroom decorum as if this was a courtroom. So proper greetings, responding to the judge as Your Honor, and of course be good sports, especially keeping in mind that there will be a winning side and there will be a losing side in these court cases. Accept them all in good fun. Of course, this is supposed to be a fun day where we're also kind of learning the basics of how you can go from forensics labs to presenting a case. There, of course, are some elaborate rules that happen in court cases, and of course, they can get quite confusing. And we understand that in some cases that might happen tomorrow in Flex Day. After all, we only have so much time to train you up for your law degrees before the afternoon. So keep in mind there are these elaborate rules. Those are used to regulate the court and to make sure both parties receive a fair hearing. The lawyers and judge are responsible for enforcing the rules, and you do this by objecting. But the lawyers must ask the judge to do so. Before a judge can apply a rule of evidence, they have to be asked. So if someone steps out of line, you have to object. And you do this by making objections to the evidence or procedure and then giving your reason for the objection. A response should, of course, tell the judge why the question or witness's answer was in violation, and then the other side can say why they believe it was not, and then the judge will make a ruling, either sustaining the objection or overruling it. For the purpose of this mock trial, there are specific rules of evidence that will apply. You will get a cheat sheet for this, actually, if you are a lawyer. So objecting based on leading questions or narration, or questions that are not relevant, or relying on hearsay, or something that's beyond the scope of the case. But we will give you some information to help you out with these so that you can object. Of course, remember you have to explain why. The other side can explain their side of the argument, why they believe it is not an objection that should be sustained, and the judge will need to make a ruling. So that's pretty much it. That's the basics of how this trial will go. Of course, we'll be there to help you. We hope that you have a lot of fun tomorrow in your Flex Day. Remember, Flex Day is the best day. Have a good one. We'll see you tomorrow.